in a skills-first landscape. That's where things have transitioned. And according to the World Economic Forum, in their recent jobs report that they came out with, Future of Jobs, 39% of existing skills will basically become obsolete by 2030. So that's a significant change. If you think about what you know today, what you're using today in your role, you're going to lose 40% of that, not be able to use it because it's obsolete. How do we deal with that? So that's a big challenge to industry. But I do remember going back a long, long time ago, kind of ancient history, when I just graduated from university and I got my first job. And the manager said to me, well, the only thing your university degree means to us is that you're teachable. Because we're going to teach you all the skills you need to know to do your job. And that's kind of the situation we're in today. People coming out of university, they have to learn it all on the job, and things are changing so rapidly. So it's a big focus for L&D, and that all revolves around training. Also from the World Economic Forum, in their jobs report, it was just interesting to see that the word training shows up 381 times. So that's pretty significant. So also Manpower continues to report that there's a significant shortage of skills and talent in the marketplace, right? So we see that the trend has gone up to into the 70% range, and it seems to be staying there. So we're still lacking a lot of skills. So another challenge for L&D. So according to our friends Fosway, skills, whether you call it skilling, reskilling, upskilling, is a major focus of L&D departments. And at the same time, organizations that invest in skilling, according to the World Economic Forum, are experiencing higher levels of productivity and innovation within their organization. But not just that, they're also experiencing higher levels of retention, right, and loyalty from their employees, because people like to work for companies that care about them, and giving them skills, teaching them, helping them it shows that you care about your employees. So that's really critical. Now, how can we do it smarter? Because we know that that's a good thing, but how do we do it smarter? So if you're familiar with Training Magazine, they published last year the Learning Methods Usage and Effectiveness Map. This is looking at all the different modalities of training. And if we go to the right, we go up on the effectiveness. And if we go on the x-axis, we're looking at how frequently it's used. If you look at the core, everything in the core is actually related to having facilitated learning. Somewhere in there's a facilitator, whether it be an on-the-job coach, whether it be a trainer or what have you. Okay, all of the core functionality that's highly effective and frequently used is instructor-led. And if we look specifically at instructor-led and virtual instructor-led training, okay, highly efficient and highly used. Now, yes, on the left side, we do have C and F, okay, which is self-paced learning and video-based learning. Though those have their place, doesn't mean that we shouldn't use them, because we know they fit and they're very good in certain instances. But we're looking at something that's really critical as skills development. The more we do with instructor-led, virtual instructor-led, facilitated learning, the more powerful and effective that's going to be. Not only do we get higher retention rates and better learner engagement when you've got facilitated learning, but you've got that human interaction. People feel they're part of a learning team, a learning cohort. You can get real feedback, and the presenter, the instructor, can adapt the presentation to the needs of the audience, and then you can have the opportunity for hands-on practice. So the top data challenges for training leaders. So one is to show value to the business. What am I getting if I'm a business leader and I'm paying you to develop training and deliver training? What's the return for me on my investment, right? That's critical, and to be able to show that. Being able to improve training effectiveness. Now that can be training effectiveness in the content you develop and how you develop that content, but it's also in the effectiveness of the trainers themselves. Now, you're probably familiar with the term T3, train the trainer, right? So you're training a trainer to deliver a certain subject. But then there's what I call T5, train the trainer to train, right? T5, there's a lot of programs out there where to help give your trainers more skills to be able to engage with the audience, to understand the audience, to adapt to the audience, right? So it's very powerful to upskill your trainers as well as developing top-notch content. Aligning with strategy, okay? Oftentimes, you'll have an L&D department that says, okay, I got to deliver training. I'm going to deliver my core competencies. I'm going to deliver my leadership list. But it's not necessarily aligned with the business. You need to connect with the business and understand what are their needs. Where are we going to move the needle for that business unit on the types of training? So getting together with the business unit to align the strategies, and then having clear and actionable reporting. A lot of times in training operations, you've got a lot of disconnected systems. Maybe you're using spreadsheets. You don't have a good way to look at data and understand what's happening in your training operations. So having that data source is critical, and we'll talk a little bit more about that as we go on. So what are the 5 ways to upskill smarter? So first off is leveraging the right data, having the data to help you do analysis, and we'll talk a little bit more about what that data is and where it can come from. Applying AI technologies and tools that are available today. As a matter of fact, in the Economist, the week before last, they were saying that AI is exceptionally good at identifying trends, crunching big numbers, and optimizing systems. So it's a great time to start using those tools that are widely available. And then measure improving your ROI, looking at what's happening, looking at multiple, we'll talk a little bit more about this, but looking at, what's the benefit, what's the cost, what is my return? And then also we want to be able to optimize training operations and specific tools that we could use for that. And then building a learning culture in your organization is really key, because you may want to deliver training, you may want people to learn, but they have to want to learn as well. And if you can build that in your organization, that's also going to be very important to success. So leveraging the right data. What types of data can we look at? Well, first of all is your budget, because training takes money, right? And so what do we do? So we have our projected versus annual budget. So basically, what are we planning to do, right? And then we've got our budget execution rate. So what are we doing? We're delivering the training. Then what was the return that we got from that training, the ROI? And then finally, how can we continuously improve? What data can we look at from all of that to say, hey, where can we improve? What courses do we need to deliver more of? Which ones do we deliver less of? Where do we need to improve our delivery skills? And all of those different pieces of the puzzle. And then the financial and logistics KPIs. Right? So looking at what's our cost per participant, know what you're spending on each of your learners, looking at the hours, the cost of the hour of training. And then you have the other ones that are more on optimization, so occupancy rates, right? And then comparing internal to external training costs. When you're talking about external training costs, hiring an external trainer can be much more expensive than using someone internally, and having visibility over what you're doing there. And then instructor utilization. Many organizations that are not tracking this today find that when they actually start looking at their utilization, typically their instructor utilization is probably going to be around 50 to 60%, and really they need to be more into the 80, 85%. And you think about that, that is a huge savings. That could be up to 50% savings on your training budget. And then participation and engagement, okay? Why are people participating? What's happening in that participation? Are they showing up for class, or are they not? Is there a reason why? What's happening? What are those dynamics that we need to track? And are they enjoying what they're taking? Do you have a net promoter score for the training? Would they recommend it to another employee? So those are critical pieces of information to have, help you always evaluate and improve. And then the training impact KPIs. This is the holy grail of training. Everybody has a hard time figuring this out. Now, if you're talking about sales training, that's easy to measure, right? You know what the salesperson was selling before, you give them training, now you can measure what they're selling today. But then there's a lot of other things that are much more subjective. When you train an engineer, for example, or leadership training, how do you measure that? And there's a gentleman, Kevin Yates, Y-A-T-E-S. He is the L&D detective. And he has a program for measuring and looking at all of this subjective data. And as a matter of fact, even if you want to look him up on LinkedIn, you can find it. He even has an ebook that he wrote that's available that you can download for free on his techniques for managing and the L&D and discovering the measurement systems that are available out there. But this is the holy grail. This is where you really need to see what is my benefit, so knowing the impact. And there's lots of tools out there. We'll talk a little bit more about that. So then applying the AI technology. So the key is having data. And where do you get that data? So it's not just from one place. A lot of people say, oh, well, we're taking the data from our LMS to be able to evaluate our training. Well, that's not the only place, right? You've got your LMS. You've got your talent management system, right? You want to look at, who took a training and then they changed jobs. They got a promotion, right? Key information like that. So data coming from your training management system, learning record store, for example, your HRIS, evaluation surveys, and quality assessments. So having all of this data, putting it in one place, like a data lake, for example, right, where it can be analyzed. And so then you've got the AI technology. Now, there are some general purpose tools out there. Some of these are listed here, Power BI, Tableau, so forth, that right now can be used to help you analyze that data. Yes, you do need a data scientist to help you with that, or you might, but there's tools that are readily available today to help you analyze that data and then start looking at trends, maybe things that you didn't think to look for, things you didn't know, but being able to see where you are in your training operations today. Right? And then once you have data, then you can understand where you are and you can make improvements. I don't know if you know Degreed, the learning experience platform, but they just published probably about 2 or 3 weeks ago what's hot or not in 2025? And the only one that I want to focus on is the third point, and what's hot is closely tying budget to success. Right? So that's again, is looking at what am I spending and what am I getting for it. And that's going to be really critical for 2025. Okay, measuring and improving ROI. So you might be familiar with the ROI Institute. So that's Jack and Patty Phillips. They've done a great job. As a matter of fact, in 2024, we belong to an association. It's the ISA, the Association of Learning Providers. And every year they do a Thought Leadership Award. And for 2024, Jack and Patty Phillips with the ROI Institute won the award from ISA just because of what they've done in the learning space in being able to evaluate the ROI on learning. So basically they have a process, right? So you've got to measure and plan. So you have to identify what you want to accomplish, right? What you want to measure, and then create that program. Then you've got the learning, right? Then you have to apply it. So basically you take the training, you go and you go back to your job, you apply it, you evaluate that, measure the intangibles, and then you can calculate your return on investment. So, what is a return on investment? So basically it's the benefit divided by the cost times 100. Tells you what your return is. And when you look at it from a business metric, return on capital. So if you go and you look at the Wall Street Journal or you look at financial reports, everyone wants to know what if I'm an investor and I invest money in a company, what's the return on capital? And that's a critical metric. And this is the exact same thing. This is for the business. If I spend money on training, what am I getting back for it? So that's going to be very important. And then also looking at your benefit cost ratio. Right? So the BCR is important. Also, a local company in the UK here, they're in Wimbledon, is the CIPD, which is the Chartered Institute for Professional Personnel and Development. Right? They have a number of tools that are available, and if you want to scan that link, you can get to their website. Some of it is member-only materials. Maybe you want to join, might be good. But you have a lot of resources available for you as well to help you in your planning and identifying what it is that you want to measure. So another part is optimizing training operations. This is an area that I know quite a fair amount about. So basically, manual scheduling processes are tedious, time-consuming, and error-prone. So a lot of times organizations today who are delivering any type of facilitated learning, instructor-led, face-to-face or virtually, are using spreadsheets to manage that. And you've got your spreadsheet for the schedule, spreadsheet for your trainers and their skills, spreadsheet for your classrooms and so forth. In some cases, there could be tens or hundreds of spreadsheets being used, very siloed and inefficient. And then you've got all the manual entry, right, that you have to do to put that all into your learning management system, because pretty much everybody's using an LMS. So tedious, time-consuming, error-prone. Then we've got the training management system. A lot of people don't know that a training management system exists because it's a behind-the-scenes tool. TMS is typically purpose-built for managing instructor-led training operations. It's about automating and optimizing the scheduling process. It's about managing all of the instructor resources, instructors that could be internal, external, knowing what they can train, what they cost, what skills they have, where they can facilitate, being able to maximize utilization of resources, so classrooms and virtual classrooms, for example, but also equipment, materials, catering, anything that needs to be scheduled for your training, and managing all of the costs associated with that. Eliminating errors, double bookings, failure to book a resource, optimizing your investments, so tracking all the costs, helping you spend less to deliver the training, and then giving you the tools to upskill and reskill your employees. So that's key to what a TMS, a training management system, is about. Again, it's part of the learning technology stack, right? And it's typically the management system. So what is the impact of a training management system on return on investment? So as the numerator, okay, you've got your program benefits. So now those are things that the tangibles and the intangibles that you get from that. But a TMS, by giving you the tools to find the right instructor, the one who's skilled on that topic, who's got the experience to deliver training, whether the experience for that specific topic, but even having the right trainer to deliver to C-level employees versus production employees, okay? There's a different skill set that's required for that. And then also giving you the tools to reduce your costs. So that now we can influence the numerator. At the same time, we can take that program cost, decrease those, so to reduce the denominator, which ends up giving you a massive increase in the return on investment because you've increased your program performance, decreased your costs. So it can really help you manage your ROI. So the program benefits, so basically using the best instructor is 3 times more effective than not, okay, which really gives you the ability to adapt to the audience, the subject, and so forth. So you're going to have a much more engaged audience who's going to learn more and be more effective. And then on the reducing the program costs. So basically, just by optimizing utilization of your trainers, for example, you get a 25% reduction. Overall budget savings typically is going to be 15%. And if you're talking about even just $1 million budget, it's still $150,000 savings, right? If you're talking about multi-million dollars, then obviously it's quite significant. And then really a 20-to-1 reduction in the time required to schedule a training event. So massive time savings. Typically, you can repurpose your people to do other more productive things because you can take all that scheduling, those spreadsheets, and all that the problems associated with it. You can take that out of the equation. So the other key thing is that the training management system holds massive quantities of data. And this is all operational data because you're scheduling, you're doing everything in that system. So all that operational data is available for you to use, to analyze, to be able to improve your training operations, reduce your costs, be much more efficient. Right? And that's all part of having that data to analyze if you're using AI. So getting that data out is very important. Okay, and you can either analyze that internally in a TMS, or you can export that to a data lake and use your other tools such as Power BI and Tableau. So we have an example from a very large U.S. banking client, 500,000 employees, deliver 450,000 employees, 50,000 sessions a year. Basically, some of the things that they realized when they started using a training management system was that they found that it was costing them over $1 million a year just in canceled events, canceled sessions. So right away they can identify cost savings. They can see where it's happening. They know the reasons. Now they can mitigate for that loss. Improving facilitator utilization to 85%, as I mentioned. Many organizations that aren't currently tracking this are in the 50 to 60% range. They're up to 85%. We used to plan their schedule, take them 90 days to plan their quarterly schedule. Now it's down to 30 days. And they had 633 spreadsheets in their organization were being used through other teams. And they're all now in one system where the data is available real time and shared amongst stakeholders. And of course, incorporates many years of best practices. So if you want to scan that, you want to get a copy of a white paper on that, could be very helpful for you. So now, building a thriving and engaged learning culture. So learning is a social experience, and as humans, we like social interaction. So having a team, having people that you're learning with, makes it much more pleasurable than just sitting there at a computer clicking through your compliance training, right? So it's important to have that. It's also having your facilitators impart your culture to bring people in and make that an enjoyable experience so that people want to learn. And then being able to connect learning to growth. So learning, if you were talking about, I was saying earlier when you're talking about loyalty and employee retention, right? When you have the culture, the learning culture, and people can grow because they're learning internally and you're supporting them, that's going to make for a much happier team that you have. To kind of wrap up here is a couple of things. So basically, Training Orchestra, we do provide a training management system. Typically we're connected to a learning management system. We can provide that strong ROI that we were talking about. And we can serve both internal L&D departments, but also customer education. So if you're in an organization that does a lot of customer training, a lot of technology companies do that. And even if you're running that as a profit center, we can help you manage that. So we have over 800 clients around the world, over 7 million sessions scheduled annually, and we've been in 25 different countries.